All right, we are live. What's going on, guys? This is the Experienced Optimist, and today I have a very special guest. His name is the Truth as I Know It. He likes to be called Truth. I came upon his channel after I went to the Thinking Man's Templar channel, another great channel, and I was checking out his videos, and I really liked how Truth breaks down the matriarchy, how it can destroy young men, especially, but girls as well. And today we're going to talk about just his thoughts on the matriarchy and how we can move forward and do something positive to counteract the negative effects of matriarchy. So, Truth, what's up, man?
How's it going? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you pretty good. How about me? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, everything sounds good. Yeah, I'm doing great.
You know, the first question I want to ask you, you made a video and you were talking about one of your friends, and he was helping his mom with some groceries. And
Oh,
yeah, I wanted you to talk about your channel, but I also wanted you to talk about that story of your friend, what happened when he was helping his mom with the groceries.
well, that was actually my friend's dad, right? So this is my
Oh,
friend's dad who
okay.
died like 15 years ago. So he'd be in his like 60s, approaching 70s right now if he was still alive. But I was over at my buddy's house, and this is a married couple from Louisiana, and I'm, like best one, when he was one of my best friends.
Mhm.
And his dad's telling us the story in the kitchen. Truth. When I was a kid, I lived with my aunt, and she wanted me to go bring the groceries in. So I went out to the car
When
to
I
go
was,
grab the
I was
groceries.
sorry.
What's that?
No, go ahead.
She goes, well, he goes to go get the groceries out of the car, and then he trips and stumbles, trying to put the groceries, in the refrigerator. I guess before he gets there, he tripped over something and fell down, and like some apples and oranges fell out. He goes, when like eggs or like the eggs that broke or milk that cracked open, he goes, or just like some produce and like, just the bag ripped open. And so his aunt gets down on one knee while he's picking up the groceries, like, oh, I'm sorry. Let me help you out. Let me help you out. And then she like cocks back and just gave him an uppercut right in the chin, boom, and like broke his tooth.
Hmm.
And he was like, well, what the fuck? Like, why you giving me an uppercut in my motherfucking mouth for because I accidentally spilled a couple groceries. And he was like, 9, 10 years old. He was a little boy. And when he told me that story, for one of your friends' fathers to tell you that, like a good, married, hardworking man to tell you that story, that haunted him. Especially with with the baby boomers, man, they don't tell a lot of stories like that, and
Hmm.
so it like haunted him, and and that stuck with me. I was like, damn, that's like some Antoine Fisher type, trauma right there.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of guys, especially that go through this type of abuse at the hands of women, but no one seems to want to talk about it. So, why did you start your channel talking about this issue?
Well, I came to the manosphere and I heard other guys talking about the black community and women, I guess. And so start to see, once I started to see different opinions and different ideas and different concepts about the black community, it just, sparked my interest because I was hearing things that I had never heard before, or I was hearing things that I have heard before, but they're like things you shall not talk about, because they're not matriarchal approved conversations. And so once I found there was an avenue to actually talk about this and discuss these things, I wanted to take advantage.
One of the things I found, especially when I was in the group home growing up, it seems that like abusive dads, they usually like physically, like, they'll beat down, abuse the kids physically. But then when it comes to mothers, they find a way to manipulate and beat down the kids emotionally and psychologically. And it doesn't seem like anyone's really talking about the long term effects of that psychological abuse. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Uh,
There's like twofold. There's one part of that, like people don't talk about abuse that mothers have on their children. Now, I just posted a video about an hour ago today. So I have actually a video that touches on that. It was a study that I bought, a really deep study. 5,000 families were studied over the course of 9 years, and put on by Princeton and Columbia University. So, you know, this is like a real deal longitudinal study. And so what I've discovered is there isn't that much information on this, and that Black boys suffer. So when we look at the elevated homicide rate and the prison industrial complex revolving door of getting abuse in the home, and then you go outside, abuse, and then you've got, you know, racism and classism and colorism and all these isms Black men got to deal with. And then I think a lot of us internalize that anger and that aggression, and then we commit that amongst each other. I think that's part of it. But the second half too is that the study of the mothers goes unnoticed. Like, what's causing these moms to be so angry, so hostile, so psychologically aggressive, so physically aggressive with not just like Black boys and their children and their daughters, like, you know, like a show like Precious, but also towards their boyfriends and husbands.
You know, that's a good point. I mean, what do you think it comes from?
Well,
if you had to,
from what I know, what was that? Excuse me?
Yeah, if you had to guess.
Well, from what I understand, what I've read is that Black women have sort of had a division with Black men going back, you know, 100 years. And they've always had, you know, because of racism and because of the nature of reality, you know, the Black experience, we were always facing hostility. So I think that women internalized some of that hostility, probably had to deal with a great deal of sexism. So then they had to deal with the, you know, the racism, the sexism. So I would imagine that a lot of Black women already had some, if you know, at least latent hostility. And then when the 60s came around, right, this is because I used to hear about hot grease, like, you know, women pouring hot grease on Black men. I used to hear grandmothers talking about what they were told, and, you know, stories that they talked about. And then when the civil rights came around, it was the Black Panthers and the Black Power movement, which is really a new movement in the way they did that. I think it split Black men from Black women in a way, into radicalized Black women, where they were like, well, if you're going to not allow women to be like leading these parts of the Black Power movement, then they kind of turn to sexism, and so then they got this virulent strain of feminism that kind of probably exacerbated those divisions between Black men and Black women.
You know, after I traveled around the world a little bit, you know, I saw different, you know, I've been to Brazil, I've been to Peru, I've been all over the world. To me, it seems like women tend to sabotage themselves and sabotage their own happiness, it seems like women revel in being like depressed and sometimes angry, from my point of view, for no reason sometimes. And I think that feeds into their abuse of others. I mean, obviously, of course, you have sexism and race and stuff like that, but it just seems like women have a propensity just to be negative, to keep things inside and not really work on what's bothering them. And then that just leads them down a slippery slope. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not that experienced with women around the world, but that would make sense, because in all cultures you're going to have a certain amount of sexism, and they kind of have to acquiesce to male power, male dominance, and male hegemony. So then they end up having this latent hostility, and they can't come out, they can't kick our ass, they can't fight us. So then they learn these ways to be manipulative and like backstabbing, and they kind of get that payback in different ways. I definitely think that's true. That makes a whole lot of sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw it a lot in the group home kids. That's when I first saw it a lot. I actually saw it in coming from the Caribbean. I saw it a little bit overseas as well. But the group home kids, they seem to mimic the women's behavior, and they were pretty manipulative. They would have this, like you said, latent hostility, and that they would use that to, you know, stab each other in the back, you know, to move ahead, to become the alpha, so to speak, you know?
Were you talk? Is that for men, like men, black
So this,
boys in particular, or just boys and
these are
or
boys
boys or
all
yeah?
together. So in the group home, my dad had like it was pretty much black boys and white boys. I think he had like a couple, like a mixed Indian kid at one point and stuff like that. But for most of them, they both exhibited that type of behavior, that latent hostility, always trying to be the alpha, overly emotional, always getting into fights and things of that nature. So they mimicked the mother's behaviors.
I could see that. Yeah, definitely. Because really, I think a lot of that's true. There's different. I've read different theories on that. Like, so I think one theory I have just from my personal experience is that as a kid, I saw a lot of racism. I mean, a lot of racism from little white boys and white girls. So I ended up like having I fought a lot, like through first through fifth grade. It seems like I probably got into like 30 fights or at a minimum. I want to say like 100, but it couldn't have been 100, but it felt like 100, but it might have been like 30 fights. So like maybe, I don't know, once a month I was getting to fight for 5 years straight. And it like, after a while, I just like whooping motherfuckers' asses, right? So it kind of gave me an attitude. So I think a lot of that can get embedded in the culture, right? So that's just me, and that's in the 70s and 80s. That's the late 70s and 80s. This was happening. So just imagine what black folks were going through in the 50s with lynching in the 40s and 30s, and there's always been a more aggression in the black community. But then are you familiar with Thomas Sowell's theory on that?
No. What was his theory?
Are you familiar with Thomas Sowell?
Oh,
who
nigga,
he is?
I'm not.
Okay, he's a black conservative writer. Maybe he's an economist.
Oh, okay.
And so he's got a book called like Black Rednecks and White Liberals. And so in this book, he says that cracker culture, which is Scottish Celtic culture, came over from Europe over the United States. And like, they got like the logo, like the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. So Irish people fought. Scottish people, like, based on Braveheart, that's what Braveheart is of Scottish people. They're known for fighting. So they brought a culture of fighting and pride and ego. And like, your manhood isn't about how much money you got. It's about like, we're going to throw down on the spot. You're not going to disrespect me. Let's go. You don't get those hands. And what he was saying, what he surmises, his theory is that black people adopted this cracker culture that was inherently violent, and then that violence was in the South and in these certain areas. But then when we left the South to find work and to leave the brutality of the South, that we brought this cracker culture into these urban environments. And he says even that dialect, you hear black people, they sound like rednecks, but he's like a funny dude, man. He likes to write for white people and not black people. So you got to take what he says with the same grain of salt.
Yeah. I actually saw there was like a YouTube video, a couple of them. I think I watched one when he was talking about like racism isn't so bad and this and that. But but let me tell you about my experience, right? So coming from the Caribbean, I was actually born here. My parents, all my family was from the Caribbean, right? I was born here, and then I went back to live in the Caribbean when I was young, right? So then when I came back,
wow.
And in the Caribbean, my grandmother was what black grandma would call a succubus. She was actually a super succubus, really. She was everything that you talked about as far as abuse. She was, manipulative, abusive, and all that type of stuff. However, the patriarchy in the Caribbean kind of kept it in check, but still coming back over. So I lived in an all white neighborhood, and so you can feel a little bit of racism there. But the funny thing is, when I moved to pretty much an all black neighborhood, like I got that a lot of racism and all that, that I guess you would say that black redneck culture as well. Like I didn't fit in. Like nothing I ever did was good enough. They internalized that racism and they would project it onto me. So, I mean, let me ask you this. Now, understanding that racism and oppression can cause, the split. At what point do people realize that, look, we have to work together, even though this racism is causing a lot of psychological trauma? The way to overcome it is essentially doing the opposite, not being quote unquote stereotypical, not being overly angry or whatever, and working together. Because it seems like in the Caribbean, people work together more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. That's all you have is black people. It's like everywhere you go is black people. So you're going to be working with each other. You can't, I mean, you're not going to really be getting jobs. Well, I don't know. It might depend on what island you're at or whatever. But generally, you're going to be dealing with, what, 98% black people on almost all the islands? Is that?
Yeah, that was, because the island's so small, obviously, it forces you to work together. But then I think here in the small enclaves as well, you would think that, I mean, because I'm 40 plus now, I would think that after like 30 years, you realize, okay, this anger is not working, right?
Right, exactly. Well, here's the thing that I see is that we have an issue with culture, right? It's like
the American culture is a big thing. Sorry. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing that I don't think most people realize that there's the fact that culture can be the most oppressive thing that there is in society. You want to talk about like, well, the government's oppressive and this regime's oppressive and the police force oppressive and the education system's oppressive and racism's oppressive. And that, and I wouldn't discount any of that. That's all true. But I think what people miss in all this is that the culture that you were born and that you live in, and that just seems like your culture, that can be oppressive. And so what happens in the black community, this is what happens in the black community, where what is toxic, what is violent, what is disrespect is like a lot of it just seems like baseline normal. Like Tupac used to say, that's what niggas do. That's what niggas do. This is what niggas do, right? Thug life. And it's like, well, there's your new baseline normal. And so when that happens, to come out of that, it's going to take a lot of work. And a lot of people, they're tied to it and they don't want to change their cultures. A lot of times that's very slow to change.
It's funny. I was reading a book that was talking about it, and I'm paraphrasing, but it said that Black American culture is it's basically just highlighting overall American culture. Like American culture on the surface, the veneer of American culture is, you have the American dream and, everyone works together and you can melting pot and, if you just work hard, you can make it. But I think African American culture shows the reality of what American culture is, the over sexualization, the greed, the narcissism, the antagonistic behavior. I think people never want to point the finger at American culture. Like people from overseas, like when I talk to my family overseas or people from maybe France, Germany, and stuff like that, they can see it. Like when I travel overseas, they can see it, but it seems like Americans can't see it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah. Right. It's like, what's that?
Oh, go ahead.
Well, Black culture is definitely a subset of American culture. Really, we get trapped into really thinking we're Black. Did you see that video, that Thinking Man's Templar video, where he talked about how his grandmother told him that they were actually free? They were free Blacks before slavery, like they were never enslaved. And because, it's a stretch for some people to believe, but everybody who was in America that, had an African phenotype, whether they were here before the 1400s or not, were not all in a lot of free Blacks who held slaves. And so this whole notion, and it used to be where Africans and Europeans used to live side by side, side by side, get married side by side. And so Black didn't have this, there wasn't a division of Black and white. It was like, what country did you, it wasn't even a continental divide. It's like, what country did you come from? And they didn't, so this whole thing of like, we're Black people versus racism in America, this is like a culture that has been imparted on us, this twisted, perverted, disgusting chattel slavery culture that's been thrust upon our heads and that we've internalized. And now if you try to get somebody to disengage with like saying we're not Black people versus white people, we're actually just people who immigrated here from different countries, and we've had our perception shaped, it's like, well, yeah, I know that, but I don't want to say it out loud because other people think I'm crazy. It's like, well, everybody's motherfucking crazy for still buying into this bullshit, this difference between black and white. So I definitely agree with you that we're like trapped. That book is absolutely correct. We're trapped by this culture that's self-defeating. It makes it look like we're supposed to be against. You got like a lot of black people feel like you're supposed to be against America, and America is supposed to be against you. And it's not. They believe that for no reason. It's just a lot of it is perceptions, and if you believe the wrong things, it could hurt your chances of success in life.
Yeah, like one guy said, it's just automatic at this point. How oppression, and it's not even racist. It's like to me, it's like a douchebag American culture of it fits into the American dream. So when you climb the ranks and you're trying to be successful in the American dream, whatever, you can't. It's an illusion. But one of the things that they say, well, even if you can't achieve it, just look, down at these other people, turn your nose up at them because you're better than them. You may not achieve happiness or the American dream, but at least you're better than those people over there. It's that type of thing. It's like a trick.
It's a trick. Yeah, it's a trick, right? You're familiar with Bacon's Rebellion? You were aware of that story, Bacon's Rebellion?
I know what
happened. Bacon's Rebellion, that was let's see, I don't remember the year, but basically, was this John Brown? Or maybe it was Bacon, John Brown. One of them, they tried to, white people and slaves, like indentured servants, white indentured servants and black slave, tried to unite and tried to destroy plantation owners and the racist elite. This is before, like, it was really a thing per se. It was a little bit different, and they tried to unite in what was called Bacon's Rebellion, and then they lost. The freedom fighters lost. The elite won, and so this is when they start. After that is when they started to draft the white supremacy culture laws.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So it's like. And so ever since, and that's what happened. They were like, well, so now you're white, they're black, so just off top, you're just going to be better than them forever. And so you create an out group and an in group.
Yeah, that's what's funny about that is a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't know that back in the day, like white people and black people like fought, and then they said, okay, wait a minute, if they gang up, if enough of these poor people gang up, we're going to have a problem. I think they did that with Indians as well, if I remember. Wait. But I know they had, but a lot of people don't know that. They think that it was always like black against white or whatever. But then when you travel outside, and this is where I think people should travel. When you travel overseas, you'll meet a lot of people of different nationalities who are cool with you. You know what I mean? Like they don't have that resentment and that anger towards you.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I noticed that.
Oh yeah, you traveled as well, right?
I haven't traveled that much. I mean, I've been to Canada. I've been into the Caribbean a few times, but I've never been to Africa or South America or Europe. But just I have noticed that like in Canada, I don't know, about 30 times, and they don't treat black people in Canada like they do in America. It's totally different. And I figured that out when I was in middle school. Actually, I was like, oh wow, they're like nice up here.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like when I went up to Canada, I've been up to Canada a couple times, and I remember coming back, and I felt like this peacefulness, and the peacefulness came from. And Midtown Universe has a question for you, but the peace came from just not being in that environment of anger. You know what I mean? Like I picked it up subconsciously. And it was just great going to Canada and kind of like filtering that out of my system before I came back to America. So I understand what you're talking about. Like, what were your experiences like in Canada?
Well, where I grew up, man, if you Google like Portland study black people walking across the street, if you Google that, there'll be a study that came out of Portland State University, and they were saying that black people are discriminated against when it comes to crossing the street. So when that study came out, I was like, hell yeah. I live that. Like, yeah, that's 100% true, right? And I knew that as a little kid. I was like, damn, they don't stop for you. So when I went to Canada, because I sold newspaper subscriptions and won a trip to Canada with me and my buddies, we all went, you know, this video game arcade, right, to go play some video games. And we're going across the street, and there's this family. It was so long ago. They were in a station wagon, right, like a 1970s, 80s station wagon with a family, a white family full of Canadians in there. And you know how they got them white like strips, like the crosswalk in the street. They parked. They stopped at this red light, but on the white strips. And then as we're coming through, they put the car in reverse because they're so damn nice, and they're waving at us, hi, hi, and put the car in reverse, right? We're like, no, stop. And boom, they hit a cop car behind them. And I was like, that would never happen in America. That's some Canadian shit right there. Like that's different. They would never do that in the United States. Dude, like that stuck with me, man. That stuck with me.
Man, that's so crazy because I went up to we had a business trip up in close to Ottawa, right? And there was this Canadian dude, man, white guy, and they were just, you know, him and his whole crew, man, they were just so welcoming, especially this one dude, man. He was like showing us pictures about his world travel. He was just like super nice. And then and the thing is, you really just don't encounter that type of openness in America. And then the funny thing about the Caribbean, it's like it may be 98% black, but when I went back recently, there were some white people there, man, and it was just all good, man. My cousin came up to my cousin, hey, how's it going? It was just like this genuine hospitality that you just do not get in the United States. But let me ask you a question that MGTOW Universe wanted to ask you. It said, truth as I know it, are you a MGTOW? And if so, how did you become one?
Am I MGTOW? I would say I'm not MGTOW. I'm actually a married man. I just had a daughter. So I would say I'm definitely not MGTOW. But I would say, though, I didn't get married until in my 40s. And I lived a MGTOW lifestyle. So, like, you know, when I was single, I didn't hear about MGTOW until maybe about 3 or 4 years ago. So, but maybe I used to be MGTOW where I didn't want kids, or if I wanted kids, I had to do it the right way. But I wasn't like a lot of the MGTOW videos that guys make. I'm like, oh shit, like I should start gaming dudes up because I got a lot of game on how to deal with women, red pill knowledge with women, how to break, you know, severance from women, how dangerous it is to be with women. So I get the MGTOW lifestyle. I understand how important it is, but one that I wouldn't consider myself MGTOW is I feel like you miss out on a lot if you don't have like a good woman in your life and you don't have kids. It's like you're just missing out on so much opportunity, and it's like you're trading in safety. You're trading in life experience and real joy for the safety of not pair bonding with a woman, if that makes sense.
I get your point. And MGTOW Universe, he could break it down probably way better than me. I don't necessarily believe that. Only because one of the things about MGTOW is self-actualization, is growing as a person. And one of the things you learn is that you really don't need, not only do you not necessarily need a woman, you don't really necessarily need anything else for you to feel that joy. I mean, that joy, when they says comes from inside, it is kind of cliche, but I really believe it at this point. And then the kids thing, I mean, like I said, growing up in that group home, it's cool to have kids, and there's a lot of joy you can come from having kids, but there's also a lot of joy in mentoring kids, and you don't necessarily have to have kids. But I understand, like, when people get married and have kids, like the joy that they get from it. I totally understand it, you know.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. Like, you don't have to have kids to have a happy life. That's some bullshit. But it's not necessarily like a deep belief that I have, I would say, but I've heard the first person maybe the second person who I heard say that was BGS Ibborn. He goes, the thing is that you don't truly become an adult, or you don't truly embrace life. I forget how he worded it, until you have children. And when he said that, I actually didn't have children at the time. I always wanted children, but I when he said it, I was like, I understand why he's saying that. And with a man who has children, and it's because it's like, when you procreate, it can give you a certain perspective and responsibilities that you just can't get anywhere else. But that doesn't, I can't really equate that with happiness. And that's just, something that sounds kind of cool to say, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the truth.
Yeah, it's and that's the thing, like going back to the matriarchy and stuff like that, right? You see a lot of women, they'll say, having kids is good, but then they'll abuse their kids. I don't really understand, why they do that. I saw that a lot in the group home, those, they say, oh, it changes you being a mother, and a guy may say it changes you being a father, and then they abuse their kids, and their kids don't talk to them for the rest of their life. So I'm like, what's the point of that?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, a lot of these women are fucked up, man. I mean, like, I get why guys go MGTOW. I get why they become monks. Man, I used to be hard on hoes. That's how I used to talk. Like, I used to be hard on hoes, right? And like, I was never letting no girl ever even come close to doing me dirty, because I was just so hard on them, right? But then when I got into my 30s, my early 30s, my mid 30s, it was like, I was like, I'm so gamed up, I let my guard down, and I let this woman in my life, I got close to her, that bitch ran me over. She straight ran me over. You know what I'm saying? I was like, damn, if it could happen to me, it could happen to anybody. And the shit I went through was lightweight. It fucked me up. I didn't have sex and talk to no girls for 11 fucking months, right? It like, that shit really hurt me. And I had to I said, nope, no sex. I ain't letting a girl in my house. I'm not talking to him on the phone. Fuck this shit. So I get it. But but for me, I was like, that should be temporary, because there's just so many girls out here that look good and like you could have great experiences with. They want to shower you with love and all type of good stuff. So, that's what I'm into.
Big Time, that's funny. Big Time Universe said that. Oh, B just also said that if he had to do it again, there's no chance in hell that he would. That's another thing. That's what's funny.
He said he wouldn't have kids.
Yeah. I talk to a lot of guys like that. They say, I'll talk to them like, hey, would you get married again? They're like, oh, marriage is great. Having kids again. I was like, would you do it again? Nah. I was like, damn, wasn't that good? I was like, there's nothing in my life where it was just like the greatest thing ever. And then I said, but if I had to do it all over again, I never would do it. There's no, if it was that
good. Hey, man, I'm a new father. So like I'm saying, it's not like I'm talking from experience. It's something I heard, and that it sounded good. Like I said, I don't necessarily believe it, but it's something I heard that sounds good. But like I said, I was single for 40 years. So, man, I felt like when I hear it, I'm like, yeah, I was MGTOW. Like, I get it. So, I definitely ain't hating. I'm not hating. It just seems kind of odd to make a whole, I could see why it's like but MGTOW and Ibmore is really nothing but it's a response to the matriarchy. It's like a lot of men get their ass kicked by these crazy ass chicks out here in this dysfunction, going in with all the best intentions, not realizing that these chicks are god awful and will fuck you up, and you can't trust them. So guys got to coalesce together and support each other. Like, in that way, I think it's a great thing.
I just think, like, if I had my way, and the thing is, like, you still mess with women. Like, if you're MGTOW anymore, you still mess with women. It's just the two principles which MGTOW Universe talks about. You just don't cohabitate and you don't get married. But you can deal with them, whatever. You can, wife them up if you want. Well, not wife them up, but hang out, do everything. But just don't do those things, to watch your six. But the thing about the kids, this is what's funny. A lot of guys may have a kid with a woman. It may not even be his kid. And he'll say, like, all those things. Oh, you just don't know. Once you have your your own, it's coming from your genes, and when you have your own kids, and then 20 years down the line, like this dude found out it wasn't even his kid, but he felt all those same emotions. So it's like,
yeah,
it's just.
Well, the thing is, man, like the reality of the city, I got lucky. All right, I got lucky because where I grew up, and the time period that I grew up, and the neighborhood that I grew up in, and the music, the culture that I grew up in made me MGTOW. Like I was MGTOW when I was 12, 13 years old. I was learning game in middle. Literally, me and my friends were learning game in middle school because we're all raised by single moms. We didn't have a lot of money. We didn't have a lot of food. We had to gather a lot of our own resources, and so then we would use women. It wasn't necessarily that we weren't using women like in a malicious way. It was like there's a lot of girls around us who would like us because we're charismatic and like black kids that were full of energy and charisma, and then they'd like want to hang out with us, bias stuff. Like, I mean, I've been spoiled by women my whole life. I could say that. Like, it was very interesting. And then I grew up. If you're in your 40s, you grew up with gangster rap. If you grew up on the West Coast, you grew up with like Ice-T and Ice Cube and just going all the way back to all these like rappers who like gained you up on how to deal with these knucklehead ass women. Like you just can't trust them. So it like I knew to use condoms. Like I'm thinking like, well, if that girl got pregnant, why don't you wear a condom? Why are you getting a girl pregnant and you didn't know? Like only get a girl pregnant on purpose. It's like, guys got to be gamed up, man.
Yeah, but
there's hell out here with these women.
That's true. But let me ask you this: the thing about game in America, right? What I've noticed is, as you get better at game, you become like this. You create this, from what happened to me, this douchebag persona that actually works against you later on in life. You become like extremely fake, right? Like if you watch those videos where people are those game videos where you're walking up to the girl, they're being like overly charismatic or whatever. Like no one acts like that, man, like 24/7. So then you create the persona, and then it's kind of like you get stuck in it and you feel like you're fraudulent. You know what I mean? Did that ever happen to you?
No, I guess because I guess it's more like street game. It's like street game where that's who I am. So I didn't it's not like I learned from other people. I learned so this is like something me and my buddies would do. We go out and we're in this 8th grade and we'd say, let's go get 7 numbers today. We got to get 7 phone numbers today. And then, so we'd have to talk to like 50 girls to do that. You know what I'm saying? So we talked to 50 girls. And so if we did that 3, 4, 5 times a week, we might talk to 500 girls in a week. So you like from each experience, you just learn a little bit more, a little bit more. So then by the time I was in my 20s, it was like, that's just kind of who I was. I didn't, you know what I mean? I didn't have to learn from other people. It was like through trial and error. And so then I know this guy, he married a girl that I know, and he's like a computer programmer. He's a nerd. He just like, he was a virgin till he met her. And I'm like, she's a stone cold freak. But they're like a perfect match because she's a stone cold freak and he's a virgin. And so she can control him and keep him in his place. And he's like, yeah, like he don't know no better. And she treats him right, and I was like, damn, they had a baby together and they're getting married. That's crazy. So I wouldn't recommend that though.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that either. Oh, MU has a good question. He said, if your daughter becomes a thought, would you feel like you failed her as a father? That's a good question.
100%. Yeah, hell yeah. She's not. There's no way she's going to be a thought because she's going to get red pilled. She's just going to know. It's really about understanding reality for what it is. If you see reality for what it is, you're not going to be a thought. If you have like a father figure and what they call the Electra complex, like a father's role in his daughter's life is to sever that Electra complex. So, which means that's like a Freudian concept where she's going to fall in love with you. Like daughters fall in love with their dads. They're supposed to. If they're not around, then you got real major problems. But if they're there and the dad says, no, you're not going to fall in love with me. You're going to find your own man. And along the way, you're going to do it in this way. You're going to treat him right. You're going to treat him with respect. You're going to be loyal. And like you pounded in her head, like that's your role. So when I send you out into the world, you're not going to let me down. This is what you're going to do, damn it. And a lot of black girls don't have that. They don't have a father figure. And if they do, a lot of times they don't know anything about the electro complex and just more than that, what it means for a woman to go out into the world and slay the dragon when it particularly comes to their family. And what I mean by slaying a dragon, doing something big, right? Doing something great. And that's like my role as a father. So I'm going to impart that to my daughter. So I don't even worry about that. No, she's not going to be no thought.
Yeah, the thing that I notice about American culture, it seems like even if the father is there and he does everything, because of the culture of America, it's so influential. It seems like a lot of times they still turn into a thought. The only way they don't, it seems like, if they're introspective and they're always thinking about their actions and trying to do the best thing for themselves and the people around them. However, it seems like most people in America don't do that. So they always fall into the trap. That's what it seems like to me. I mean, what do you think?
What do you mean exactly?
So American culture. So in the Caribbean, right? Like my cousins or whatnot, I think they're the way they are because of the cultural expectations of the Caribbean, right? You're supposed to cook, clean, take care of the kids, work hard, do all that stuff, close family. In America, it's not like that. It's it's almost like the opposite. Like the woman's over, she's empowered to do whatever she wants. Who cares about the man? I can sleep around with guys on the low, and then I can pretend to be this good woman when ultimately I'm not. It's that type of thing. And it seems like even if you have a father that tells her, well, you need to do this and this, she may act like that on the outside, but she goes along with American culture on the inside.
I see.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. Yeah. I mean, the key is is that if you give people the right information, okay, this is my experience, is that there's a lot of girls that have a father in their lives, and their dads, like, they teach them, you need to be a good girl, you need to wait to get married before you have children, or even they tell them to have sex, and this and this and that, and don't do this and don't do that, and like they tell them, but they don't tell them about the dark side of reality. So if you look at, my videos are very dark in nature because I talk about things that other people generally won't approach, I guess. And in many ways, like you grew up in a group home, you saw a lot of dysfunction. MGTOW is all about darkness. That's a part of reality. So a lot of these girls, they don't get told about darkness. They're shielded from, they're told to avoid it. So they don't really understand it. So they go out here, oh, I'm just going to do this and this and that. And then, yeah, they do get swept up into that American culture. But I think part of that is just giving them more information, like richer insights. You can't prevent any person from doing anything, but, I think if you teach them a little bit deeper than what most can understand, and if they understand men, they can do a better job with controlling themselves.
Yeah, I think, man, I just think after traveling around the world, it seems like, to me, women are only good due to cultural expectations. Other than that, it seems like they slide. For Rihanna, a perfect example. She's West Indian, right? I think she's from Jamaica, right? Or Trinidad, one of them. I don't know. Now, if she had stayed in the Caribbean, I think she would have turned out different. She wouldn't have been trying to get in fights with Chris Brown, and then she has this girlfriend now, and she's doing all this crazy stuff. She said she's like some super feminist, something like that. Things like that happen. I think when you get into a culture that she got into, that's American, I'm free, I can do whatever I want culture. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah, because then it just like opened up this door for her to just express that freaky side, and then she's selling records, so she's creating the very culture that goes against what she was raised in. And a lot of young people are, pop music is always going to be counterculture, if it's any good, at least.
Well, let me ask you this. So, man, growing up in the matriarch, what can young men especially do to counteract the negative effects of the matriarchy?
To counteract the negative, read. One of the best things you could do, just get get information in your head, read books, get into this manosphere, watch my videos. I go into some crazy ass stuff about the Oedipus complex, about, I just got some wild stuff. I don't know, it might be too boring for people or whatever, but for me, it's like, you got to realize that women in the matriarchy are inherently dangerous. They're inherently disrespectful. They're devaluing when it comes to men. They want to usurp power. A lot of women from the matriarchy will stick you with a kid, put your ass on child support, and you might be able to see your kids every other weekend or something if you're a nice little boy. Like, that's like the reality of the situation for a lot of men. And you got to realize realize that going in, and then you have to know how to navigate that. And keep yourself safe. I'm like, why are these dudes getting these girls pregnant? Like, you're supposed to use condoms, man. You got to use condoms, or go get a vasectomy. Like, you have to go get the vasectomy reversed if you want to have kids. It's like, you got to understand, like, the matriarchy is filled with dangers. That's why I never like messing with a lot of black girls, just because they're too dangerous for me. While, like, I'm a hard-head dude. I like messing with girls. I like fighting in the streets. Like, I was like a wild young dude. So I'm like, why would I want to deal with a woman who's just as wild as me? That's like a death sentence. That's not going to end well. And so I think a lot of black guys, you got to take yourself outside of that, man. Deal with girls that are safe, that are safer at least.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing about it. Why do you think that people don't pay much attention to the disadvantages of the matriarchy? Like, No Filter said that the patriarchy is just as bad, but in my view, it seems like no one looks at the matriarchy as being bad. Like, what happens? They're just like, well, it's just a woman. She's harmless. She can do no wrong. What do you think about that?
That broke up a little bit on my end. Can you say that again?
Oh, I was saying, like, how come people turn a blind eye to the matriarchy? How come they just look at a woman, they say, oh, well, she's a woman, she's weak, she's feeble, she can do no wrong. Why do you think people think like that?
Same reason a fish swims around and he goes, wet? What you mean I'm wet? I'm not wet. I'm in this water. What do you mean? What you mean wet? It's like, because that's all they know. They've been taught in the culture that women are innocent and they're good and they're pure, and like I'm awesome and she's just gonna fall in love with me and be loyal to me forever. Like, that's how women are, right? And they believe all that bullshit. And that's because they didn't get red pill. They didn't have a dad like me who can tell, or dad like you, right? Or a man like you, or not just a dad, but a man like you who could tell them, like, this is the reality of the situation. This is how women really are. You got to be a psychologist. You got to have to be a psychologist to deal with women, or have so much money that you could put a woman on scholarship and then just say, shut up, go to your room. Like, I don't have to deal with you. I'll just pay all your bills and you look pretty. Thank you. That'll be a psychologist. It's like go in between on that.
Yeah, that's crazy. Oh yeah, Evan, you said it best. He said the world today is what happens when women have free reign. I would have to agree with that. But that's the thing. Like, he said the world today is what happens when women have free reign. Would you?
Yeah, they have a lot of power. Yeah, that I would agree with that. Yeah, because they got more power now than ever. And so you have to deal with that. We got to deal with that. That's the world that we live in. And the problem is, women are told to be empowered. Women are told to they're like on iOS, 2019, and men are on iOS 1959 still. It's like, we're like, you're innocent and you're nice and you're pure. And they're like, what? I suck dicks every weekend. What are you talking about? And I pretend like I'm nice.
Yeah, he brings up a good point. Yeah, it just seems like, to me, even having that father in the home in American culture, man, you just can't. It has to be like super strict, and then even then, I find that women only do it not necessarily because they like you, because of those cultural expectations. It's like, man, that was like one of the hardest things for me, at least, to finally come to the understanding. You know what I mean? And then when I had the grandmother who was like abusive, and I saw it a lot, especially in America. The women in America, my God, they were like so abusive to the men around them. It was really, really crazy. But how did
Yeah,
you?
it's crazy, especially black women.
Yeah. Oh, man, I got a story
Oh,
about,
I want to hear
like,
the story. Don't share the story. I want to hear it. What happened?
okay, so that story about the father, whatever, that got beat, and then you went into a story as well. I think talking about your mother. But anyway, so what happened with me? My dad started dating this African American woman, and she was evil. She was like a younger version of my grandmother. It was crazy. So one time she's like, "You need to clean up your room," and my room was clean or whatever. And no. Yeah, she said you need to clean up your room and then go to bed. Right? I take a nap. And what she was trying to do was she was trying to trap me basically. So she wanted to clean up my room. I did that, and then she was like, "Okay, I couldn't get him then." And she wanted me to take a nap because she was lazy. She didn't want to do anything. So I went down to take a nap. She's like, "I'm gonna get up now." That's what she was thinking, looking back on it. And I was trying to get some sleep. And what she was trying to do, she was like, if you don't go to sleep when I come back, I'm gonna beat you. So I'm trying to get some sleep. And she kept
What?
up, yeah,
She
she
said,
kept
when
up.
you go to sleep, when I come back, I'm going to beat you?
No, she said, if you don't go to sleep when I come back, if you're not sleeping, I'm gonna, beat you or whatever. And so I was trying to get some sleep. And what she was doing, she was coming in the room like every like 15 minutes to wake me up. Right? So I couldn't get any sleep. So I'm finally dozing
Hold on,
off.
Why is that's like, so okay, you said some crazy ass shit right there, my head's spinning. So chill me out a little bit, like relax me on this, because like that's okay. Why didn't she want you to sleep, first of all? And then why
No,
would she beat you if you do go to sleep?
no, she wanted me to sleep. So she wanted me to go to sleep so that, she could
Oh,
just relax and just take it easy, right? Because I used to do like all the
okay.
chores for her and everything. I was like her little slave around the house. So but she couldn't beat me when I cleaned up my room, right? Like once I cleaned my room, she's like, "Oh, okay." I couldn't get him there, so I'll get him I'll tell him to go to sleep, and then I'll keep on barging in so he can't get to sleep, and then I'll beat him, right? She was just looking for an excuse to beat me. So
Damn.
when I was just about to get some sleep, and she comes in, belt in hand or whatever, and then she just goes off on me and just beats me and beats me and beats me. And what she used to tell me and my sister when my dad was at work, she used to come up to him. She said, "Look, if you ever tell him, I'm going to cut your ear off. I'm going to cut your finger off." She would say stuff like that.
What?
Yeah. So when you were telling me all those stories about like you and I was just like, yep, yep. That's par for the course.
That is fucking. You ever seen the movie Mommy Dearest? No wire hangers. You ever seen Mommy Dearest?
Oh no, what's that?
Check out Mommy Dearest. That's about a real. That's like Joan. It's about Joan Crawford, I think, or something, like a real movie star. Like my mom, I'm pretty sure she got borderline personality disorder. You were talking about your grandma. You were saying that was your
Oh yeah,
grandma.
yeah.
Yeah, man, she's on some different shit. She got like, whatever she's crazy. She's a matriarch. Um, well, let me ask you, how have you healed? Have you like processed that? Like, dude, that's like one hellacious fucking story, man. If I saw your grandmother, I swear to God, I would slap her and knock her ass out for that. I would like I hate that shit. Like I would knock her out. No disrespect to you, like, but just off top, like, nah, you ain't fucking with Optimus like that, and like, and no retribution, man. That's totally fucked up. I'm sorry you had to go through that, man. That's
I
terrible.
almost Yeah. Well, the thing is with that, man. Like, yeah, it messed me up, and I'll tell you what I had to do to deal with it. But my dad, and this is when I saw like how women like weave this spell over their kids. Like my dad and my uncles, right? They were like, "Man, you need to do something to help her." Like she got old, and because what generally happens with a lot of these people, they get old and they lose all their power, and then everyone abandons them. That's what happened with my grandmother. And so she needed money and stuff like that. My dad and uncle had the nerve to ask me if I wanted to help. And I saw her when she was old and feeble when she came to the States and lived with my dad. I felt like just I saw her and I just looked at her and I just wanted, you know what I mean? I wanted like choke the living, you know. But to deal with that, dude, I did a lot of stuff. Like I listened to like MP3 tapes of like one in particular on YouTube. It's good. It says it's for ultimate confidence. It just says you're a confident person and just repeats it like all like for like 30 minutes. And you just listen to that. It builds up your confidence. So like I did that, did ayahuasca. The best thing to help if you want to hear it.
Yeah.
Like the best thing. Okay. I don't know if you know what ayahuasca is. Ayahuasca is.
I know from Joe Rogan. Yeah. Like Tetris or something. Yeah.
Well, actually, I did that like 7, 8 times. And they say it's like 10 years of cognitive behavioral therapy in 7 hours, right? So if you think of it, so I did it like 8 times, right? So that's a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy. So basically, in this one, I took it one time, and I was having this.
Where'd you do this at? Where'd you do this at? Was this like with a therapist, and you had like a professional?
No, this was in Peru.
You went to the motherland. Oh, damn!
Yeah, I was serious. I went there, did the whole thing where they're singing the music and beating the drum, and while you're taking this medicine. And they said the key to the medicine, to how it helps you. I think a lot of Black people should do this medicine, as a matter of fact. They said the key to this is that you have to state what you want before you take it. So you got to say, well, I want to work through the issues with my father. I want to come to grips with my religion, stuff like that. So one of the things I said was, I want to deal with, all the negative trauma that I had in my past. So I take it, right? And
yeah.
And I'm having this vision, right? I'm having this vision. And then the ayahuasca pretty much is talking to me, right? He's like, what superhero do you like? And I was like, man, I like Green Lantern, right? So then I turn into Green Lantern. So I had an avatar of myself as Green Lantern, right? And then it showed me as a little kid, right? Helpless, no one to protect me, right? And it's like, my big me, my avatar was like, I'll protect you. So it went back in time to when my grandmother was there, right?
Yeah.
Beating me and abusing me. And my smaller self was like, take care of her. And then me as Green Lantern beat the living shit out of, like, I basically killed it, right?
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
So then after I did that, it turned to my younger self, and he was like, what's next? So then I went to my stepmother, who was abusive, beat the living shit out of her, killed her, whatever. And then he was like, who else? And then he just went through all the times that I've been picked on and bullied in life. And after it did that, like, it was like catharsis. Like it cleaned out all that negative trauma and anger and resentment. And that was like the best experience I ever had in my life, as far as that's concerned. So
it makes perfect sense.
I would recommend, like, a lot of people dealing with trauma, especially African Americans, if they were to do something, I would recommend doing that, because it really will. Not only does it take care of the trauma and stuff like that, it shows you, like, another vision I had, man, that was really eye-opening. Okay, the ayahuasca asked me, it said, who do you want to be in life? He was like, do you want to be your best self? I will show you your best self, whatever. And then it showed me my best self. I was standing in front of like a group of people in all different races of men and people. And it was just a feeling of connectedness. Everyone was together. No bullshit, no racism, nothing like that. And it showed me, like, that's how the world is supposed to be. And it said, you can be that guy Do you want to be that guy? And the thing is, I felt like I was afraid. You know, this whole time in my life, I was afraid to be the best version of myself, and it showed that fear. And I was just like, man. And then, so I watched this talking to me. He's like, there's a vision. That's you. That's who you can be. Do you want to be it? And all this time I was thinking I always wanted to be that guy, but I was always afraid. You know, I didn't know I was afraid. And then I said yes. And then it showed me like becoming that guy, you know? And, you know, now it seems like that's the journey that I'm on right now. I'm becoming that person. But it was crazy, man.
That's a dope ass story, man. Thanks for sharing that. That's amazing, man. Like, I'm feeling that, dude. Like, I'm glad I asked. Like, I'm glad I asked because that is one hell of a fucking story, man. It's like, have you seen my Slaying the Dragon videos about fathers and sons?
No, I only see I saw the Matriarchy Part 1, the one with the, you know, I haven't seen that one. I'm gonna check it out though. I'm still going through.
Dude, I got some videos in there, man. You're a smart guy. You are a, I don't know what your formal education is, and it doesn't matter. But the way your mind works, just the way you could tell that story like that, and like destroy demons. You're in Peru taking ayahuasca and like slaying demons, man. That's pure genius to be able to do that, right? Like, dude, like, thanks for sharing that, because I've had my own stories to do something similar. I went a different route, but at the end of the day, the fundamentals of what you're saying sound exactly the same. And then when you said I was afraid to be my best self, right? Like, yeah, man, yeah, I get that, man, 100%. So thanks for sharing that story.
Well, here's the thing, man. It seems like you yourself with the videos you're doing that's helping men every day. You got Thinking Man Templar, right? You got John Nada, you have Black Ram, you got Sunrise Hoodie, all these guys. It seems like there's a lot of dudes coming up now, man, that's really helping men out. Like there seems to be a shift in the paradigm of what it means to be a man. What do you think about that?
What it means to be what?
A man?
Well, I would say that I definitely feel that sense of what it means to be to understand yourself as a black man in America is kind of how I think of it, because, you know, I was taught, you know, you heard my video about my mom and what my mom taught me. And like, that was a very short time period. I got kicked out of that. She kicked me out of the house. I didn't even that was just like till like 5th grade. I didn't tell you the worst stuff, or, you know, or whatever, like some of this crazier shit she did. But, it warped my thinking in a certain way and my whole perspective. And then now that I'm in my 40s and I look out into the world, I was like, dude, like, you were thinking about the wrong shit. And and really, like, what manhood is about is it is like, and that's a beautiful thing with MGTOW. You don't hear that enough. I don't hear that enough about MGTOW, about being self-actualized and being your best self, because that's what manhood and womanhood and or just personhood's all about. That's what it should be about, is just being your best self. And then when we create all these stupid divisions, you know, oh, he's black, he's white, he's young, he's old, this and this and that, there's so much difference between all of us, and then we obsess over all these differences, and it's like we're all supposed to just be living right and being happy and being prosperous and just, you know, and doing what we want to do and doing what we need to do to be successful and happy.
Yeah, especially what is.
Yeah, because as a black man, I was taught, like, you're going to have to fight racism, and it's going to be so hard, and like trigonometry, it's going to be so hard for you to do trigonometry. Then you take trigonometry, guys, it's not that hard. It wasn't that, I mean, it's hard, but it's not that hard. Like, why are you fucking my head up with this shit? Are there racist white people? Yeah. If you get a job, do you find racism? Yeah, you're probably going to have racism on the job, but like, is that going to stop you from having a great career? No. Like, quit that job, get a new job. Like, shit's never been easier for a black man. But I wasn't taught that. You know, I was really taught the opposite. And like, it sounds like you were born in darkness too. Like, man, if your grandma's talking about cutting your fucking fingertips off and shit, like that's some hellacious shit. Motherfucker would have to do drugs to get over something like that.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing about it. But the thing is, what kind of help with that situation is that Caribbean people in the Caribbean can be kind of harsh. So when you come to America, it seems soft in comparison. I'll give you an example. My uncle's, he was the patriarchal side of the family. My uncle raised his kids, right? And they would come home and then he would write complex math problems on the board outside, right? And he would say, if you don't solve these, you're not coming in for the night. And so if they didn't solve it, they weren't coming in. Like you would have to sleep outside, right? And so that's a lot of people see that as harsh, which it is. But then when they came over to the United States to go to college, they found out that it made it easier because they were so used to doing like math and stuff under harsh conditions that it helped them excel in the United States. But stuff like that,
Yeah. The brutality.
But I actually read a book from Harvard about that.
Damn.
There's a Harvard book about it that explains it. They said that some Caribbean parents could be seen as harsh and using child abuse. However, that same child abuse helps them achieve success in the United States.
Wow, it's fucked up.
It's weird, but the thing is, like, what did you do to overcome like all that stuff, man?
I didn't do a lot of stuff. I didn't do a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff I did was I smoked a lot of weed. I would stay high like a month at a time. I would like wake up in the morning, smoke weed, go to bed and smoke. Wake up, smoke weed, go to bed. And I didn't realize why. I was like I had. It was like I had anxiety, but it was like my whole worldview, like what I was learning at home, and I go out into the world, like my shit was just fucked up. I was like living in 2 and 3 different worlds, and as a black kid in an all-white city with a crazy ass mom, and then I got to do eats and like these, and it's just like this whole fucking thing. So I really didn't deal with that well. But I guess really what happened was I made a decision that I wanted to be successful. And that's what it came down to. I wanted to be successful. And I said, you know what? I want to be a basketball coach. I said, I want to be a basketball coach. Right. And then like, boom, it took about 3 years. I was a college head coach. I was like, God damn. Like if I put my mind to something, I could get this fucking shit done. And then I said, well, what I want to do is I want to make this much money and I want to live here and I want to have these type of women and like I want to look like this when I look in the mirror. And I just started making decisions and just saying fuck it. But to get to that point, I could tell you I got reunited with my father. That was probably the biggest thing because I was in a spot in my life where I was like feeling like I was on the edge of going to the penitentiary. I could go to prison. I escaped like jail sentences and all type of, I felt like I could have went to prison. And he was like, what are you going to do with your life? What do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know. I want to be a basketball coach. He goes, well, just do that. Just focus on that. Nothing else. And I was like, just hearing that from my dad made a difference.
Exactly.
And once you start coaching, right. And so what I did, I started off coaching elementary school kids and volunteering and giving back. Like you were saying earlier, right. About you don't have to have kids to have kids because you can always mentor, and giving back to the community and mentoring did as much for me as anything else, because then I saw myself reflected in these other kids, and I was nurturing these kids and giving these kids what other people didn't give me, and that felt great. And other people saw that and they wanted to pull me up. They wanted to help me and put me in good situations, and just being around a lot of men, being around a lot of other black men who were more successful than me helped me. So I had like the college presidents pulling me in, and I was like, damn, like it's always been men, right? It's like men. Yeah, men have really helped me out. And even white men too, not just black men, but white men. And so that, and then also I did acid, much like you. I did acid before, like I got like a bag of mushrooms. It wasn't acid. No, it was mushrooms. Excuse me. I had some mushrooms, and my buddy, he's like, "Hey, man, I got some mushrooms. You want some or whatever? Let me split these with you. I'll just give them to you." So he gave me this bag of mushrooms. And I was like, damn, when I do these mushrooms, I feel great. So what they call is like, I didn't know what it was. I was just experimenting. And this is when I was in college, right? And like, so you would do experiments in college. Like I was like a physics minor. So I do a lot of, physics experiments. So I started doing small doses of mushrooms every day for about a week. And I found the way I felt sounded crazy. Well, then like years later, I'm reading online and they're like, oh, they have something called like small dosing for was it mushrooms or LSD? I don't remember, but it was very similar. I was like, that's what I did. And I felt way better. It helped me because it helped me go into the world and live the way I wanted to live. But I didn't have to feel the stress of like my endocrine system that I would normally feel. And it kind of readjusted me in a way, I guess, if that makes sense. I don't know. Is that too far out there?
No, that's not too far out there at all. I mean, I was listening to Joe Rogan, and he was explaining like apparently like mushrooms and ayahuasca is similar in the way that they work. So that makes a lot of sense, As a matter of fact, like some people do mushrooms and they have a similar experience to ayahuasca. It's just that I believe ayahuasca lasts longer. It obviously works different, But well, there is one story about ayahuasca that's pretty interesting, though. I'll say, I mean, if you want to hear it, I don't know.
Yeah, I want to hear it.
So basically, there was this dude. He was like a Navy SEAL dude, right? And he went down to I think Peru, and he did ayahuasca, right? So it was him and his wife, and so he takes it, and he's a big macho guy, right? He has his own company and everything, and the ayahuasca starts hitting him, right? And he's like, dude, man, I need to use the bathroom. So basically, when you take ayahuasca, it makes you use the bathroom a lot. Basically, you have to number two a lot, right? But you can't walk a lot of times. I mean, you're stumbling because it throws off your balance. So there's this line of rope leading to the bathroom, and he felt it coming on, and he was just like having all these visions. His balance is off, and then his legs wouldn't work. So he falls to the ground, right? And he gets back up, and he falls to the ground again. He starts grabbing the line to get to the bathroom before he, poops on himself. So he's grabbing the line. He's crawling along, and then he feels his muscles relax in his anus, right? And he starts pooping all over himself. And so he keeps on going, and he's still like pooping all over himself. And what ayahuasca, he found out afterwards, what ayahuasca was telling him was that he said, look at you. You're this big man. You're this boss guy. You've been going throughout your life, talking down to people, bossing them around, people at work. And it showed him at work, like bossing people around or whatever. And he realized that and ayahuasca said to him, look at this big, strong guy. Look at you now. Look where you're at. Look how helpless you are. And the guy, so he's shitting himself, and he's crawling, and he gets the bathroom or whatever, and he's taking a shit or whatever, and he has shit all over himself, right? And then he's still trying to crawl, and that's what he's learning from ayahuasca. But then he gets back to his place where he's sleeping, and he shits like all over the place, right? And he's sick, and he can't do anything. And then I think it was in the morning or something happened, and he turns and he sees his wife cleaning up all of his excrement, and she's cleaning it all up, right? And then ayahuasca was like, "This is what you've been doing to people your whole life. You've just been shitting on them, basically, and they had to clean up your mess.
Mm-hmm.
And this is you need to learn from this." And he said after he had that experience, he changed the way he acted towards people. He was better towards people. He treated them with more dignity, and he became a better man because of it. And I was like, man, that's a powerful story. And the dude was he was a big dude. He was a big, he was that alpha male type dude, but ayahuasca broke him down.
Right. Everybody's subconscious is the same size, right? Pretty small, could fit in your head. That or
Oh,
is as big as the universe, right? It's like one of the two.
you actually brought
Oh,
up. What's up?
I said MGTOW. Is MGTOW Universe still in here? I don't know if he's still in here. He
Yeah, that
goes,
was a good
what is
question.
your feeling about the 11-year-old girl getting hit by the white guy after she pushed him twice? You know, and I looked at that. I saw that. I was like, you know what? Um, I don't know why you would hit an 11-year-old girl, like cold cock an 11-year-old girl. That's the weakest shit I've ever seen. Like, I would, you know, that seems ridiculous to be punching a 11-year-old girl like that. But he was out in a crowd of kids, and a crowd of kids can be very dangerous. That's true. A crowd of kids can be very dangerous, but like a crowd of girls, like, dude, he could probably beat up like 30 11-year-olds, you know, like 40 11-year-olds. I don't know. You shouldn't be punching no 11-year-old girl. What kind of man does that? That shit is weak.
Yeah,
I never heard of that before. I ain't seen that.
I would understand that if, like, after I saw a video, I was like, I mean, she is asking for it. Because here's, like, the way she came at him, it looked like she was confident. I was like, did she have a knife or something? The thing is, I've seen that growing up as well. Like, you have this group of people. It looked like there was a lot of group. A lot of times, there's a lot of white knights in there, and then, you know, it gets a little crazy. And next thing you know, the guy's been jumped on by 5 or 6 people. And the way she came at him, she came at him pretty strong. Like, I was like, what this? So I was like, he probably panicked. He didn't know. I know in the Caribbean, like, Caribbean dudes don't play. In Brazil, dudes don't play. And I know Russia dudes don't play. She probably would have got kicked on the ground in those places. Like, they don't play, man.
Right.
Like, but here in America, I think the reason why a lot of women act like that is because they're allowed to, you know. I remember in
Yeah, they
Brazil,
feel
I was like,
protected.
man, Brazil, if a girl comes up, you know how he hit her with the left? He may have hit her with the right going down, and then a couple foot stops in there too.
Oh yeah. I know in Russia they said they had to start letting people out of jail and ease back the domestic violence laws, like made them weaker, couldn't afford to be locking all the men up because women were getting their ass kicked all the time. You know, like I was like, damn, that was in the paper I read. I was like, damn, they made the rules weaker because they couldn't afford it. Yeah,
I've been over to
but
Russia.
it's like,
oh yeah, go ahead.
Well, you know, I just look like your 11-year-old should know better than to be fighting a grown man. Like that's one thing, but like he deserves his ass beat. If I'm her dad, I'm beating his ass in the streets. You know what I mean? We ain't going to court. I'm gonna come see you. I'm gonna hunt you down like an animal in the woods. You're not gonna do that to my daughter. That's me. But at the same time, I'm gonna beat my daughter's ass too. Like, what the hell were you thinking? Like, there's no way that would happen. There's just no way. But you could tell she's like was raised in the matriarchy, and like you were saying, that culture. Like she's getting that from the culture where she feels safe and protected.
That's the problem right there. Like that should have never happened. Like, man, that's why when people say when they go to Brazil, it's like, man, the women seem so feminine. I was like, because every 2 or 3 months, you know, maybe in the Caribbean too, every 2 or 3 months, something like that happens, and then and then the women are like, oh, well, maybe we don't need to, let's back down, you know.
Exactly.
So
yeah, it's real interesting how things are different.
Yes. But that's cool, man. Like, is there anything else you wanted to add? I'm gonna put a link to your videos in the description box too.
Well, I liked your videos. I got a question like, what do I need to know about MGTOW that I don't know? I don't really know that much about it. I've heard of it. I've seen a couple videos. Seems okay. I just wouldn't consider myself, I'm married with a kid. I don't know how I could be MGTOW, but what don't I know? What don't I realize?
Well, it's funny. A lot of people think like Obsidian was saying the MGTOW are losers and this and that, and that's not true at all. MGTOW is very simple. Like I said, it's no cohabitation and no marriage, basically. But other than that, you can do whatever you want. You know, you can have girls or whatever. You can date. You can do all that stuff. But the thing is, it's just the understanding that knowing that in this environment that I mean, you're throwing yourself into a trap basically when you go down that route when you're, cohabitating and you get married. So MGTOW comes in all flavors, man. You can do whatever you want. It's just that those two tenets, if you just follow those, you're going to be on a path to, I believe, self actualization and self enlightenment. I think because it's not about the problem with a lot of men is the biggest downfall for men. I noticed that they can brave any situation, wars, building stuff, whatever, but their weakness is always women. It's always this false idea that everything comes from outside himself to make him happy and for his fulfillment. And once you get over that, you learn that life is much more about building who you are as a person, as opposed to looking to a woman or society to justify who you are. And that's what MGTOW basically is all about. It's more than just not cohabitating with women or whatever, because that's the weakness that drives men into essentially slavery.
To essentially slavery. Okay. Well, I didn't like what Obsidian said about just calling people losers. Like I never really got the sense. It's like MGTOWs aren't incels. Like incels kind of seem like losers. They're like, we can't have sex and we're angry. Okay, that sounds like, dude, you just need some you need to go hit the weights, bad, you know what I mean? And
Yeah,
put on some jeans or something, you know. Take off them khakis and put on some jeans. But for MGTOW, yeah, it seems good. I could see that. I don't know what like no cohabit. You wouldn't want no living. What about 2 living girls or 3 living girls? You wouldn't like that? I mean, that don't sound nice.
nah. See, that's another thing. Like, because I've been around the world, man. I've been with every type of woman. And the thing is, to me, it's like overrated. Like all these dudes, the dudes seem to be what it is. It comes down to an addiction to a woman's validation, man. Like it's this addiction that men have, and as long as they have that addiction, they can't self-actualize. They're like they don't know what to do without a woman in their life, and there's a ton of things to do: climbing mountains, becoming a black belt in jujitsu, reading philosophy, studying neuroscience. There's all sorts of things that a man can do, but he shortchanges himself chasing after women. It's another thing I noticed. A lot of men have a fear of becoming better men, and they use women and kids as an excuse. Like I'll be talking to a guy, and he'll say, "Yeah, man, I would have ran that 10K, but you know what, bro? I got a wife and kids, man. You know what they say, cheaper to keep her, right, bro?" And I'm like, man,
Yeah. They do say that. Yeah, that's true.
and it's just, like how much is enough? That addiction. Like you have sex with a couple chicks, and they're like, "Good job." They pat you on the head like you're Lassie. You're like, okay, and then you just go after the next fix, and then you're like, okay, well, maybe I need to get the girl with double D boobs. Okay, well, maybe I need to get a girl with a bigger ass, and it's empty, to me.
I could see that. Well, and so for me, when I think about this, like my thing was like having a woman actually allows me to become self-actualized, so I'm not out there chasing girls. I like a living girl. That's the best way. Like being married, I'm like, oh my goodness, I got so much more time and energy to focus in on like things that I want to accomplish, because then I'm not worried about chasing women. That's like one of the blessings of like dating that girl and then becoming a monk for 11 months, and like because then I was like, boom, just like this laser focus in on what I wanted to do. And then I met my wife, and when I met her, we were like best friends. And it was like, oh, now I don't have to worry. I don't have to worry about dating. Now dating and sex and women isn't a distraction. It's just something that is very consistent, and something that just integrated in my life. So then I can focus in on other things. So I mean, but that's just for me because everybody's different. But I do agree with you that guys like use their kids and having a woman and all that is an excuse. That's true. That's very true.
Oh yeah, Big Time Universe has said it best. Says, imagine what the world would look like if Sir Isaac Newton or Nikola Tesla has to get a regular job to pay something.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And
Oh, good.
I don't know. That's really interesting. I just want to say too, thank you for hitting me up and bringing me on your live stream, man. You seem like a great guy. We've got stuff in common. You're super interesting, man. I subscribe to your channel. I'm going to subscribe to MGTOW Universe too and see what he's got to say. You guys seem like some great guys.
Oh yeah, Big Time Universe, and No Filter as well. No Filter. We haven't forgot about you too, No Filter.
Oh, who's No Filter? Do I need to subscribe to him too? Yeah, I'll check him out.
No Filter, yeah. Hey, well, yeah, like I really appreciate it. I'm gonna put the link in the description box, man. And yeah, that's about it, dude. I guess I'll see you next time.
Okay, later.
Take care.